And this year, this year 2024 is bound to be very eventful. And already, as we were ushering in the new year, Ruto made a statement that provoked a lot of emotions, actually a lot of emotional reactions to what he had to say. In my opinion, these remarks by William Samoei Ruto also very neatly summarized and illustrated his presidency. The style, the approach, the thinking, the deep inner thinking, everything. On my show today, we shall not only focus on this thing that Ruto said, which is, my plan is being sabotaged. My plan for Kenya, my plan for a better Kenya, my administration's plan is being sabotaged. And remember, this is not an ordinary Kenyan speaking. This is the pork speaking, President of the Republic of Kenya. So on my show today, we shall not only analyze this, but we shall also try and get a very clear picture of what kind of year 2024 is going to be. So my strong advice, please stay with me to the end so that you get a better grasp, because 2024, everybody is saying, all the people who should know, all the people who are predicting, are saying 2024, wachana na hiyo 2024. They're saying scary things. And from an analyst's point of view, it is very easy to see these scary things coming to pass. Indeed, from analysis, a lot of these gloomy predictions can easily be confirmed through analysis of the facts of Kenyan politics. Although it is true to say, indeed it should be very clear by now, that out of all the presidents we have had in Kenya, Ruto is the biggest failure. Ruto is the man who has most greatly underestimated what it takes to be president of Kenya. It is also true to say that every other man who has taken over as president since the 70s has always greatly underestimated what it takes to sit on this seat. Please allow me this brief history, because we will then be able to understand why Ruto's case is tragically different from the others, because the others recovered. But it seems the fifth president will never recover, will never settle in. And there's a very clear indicator when you compare him to his predecessors. When Johnston Kamau, better known as Jomo Kenyatta, led Kenya into independence, there is a lot of evidence to suggest that he believed it would be more or less a walk in the park. Even looking at his predecessor, the Queen's representative, Governor of Kenya, Governor of colonial Kenya, it must have appeared that governing Kenya was not such a big deal. But just a handful of weeks into the job, there was a very rude awakening, a very rude reality check. And history even very clearly records the event that proves all this. An emergency cabinet meeting at the president's office at Harambee House. The agenda? the shocking coup in Zanzibar, led by a mere Ugandan policeman called Okello. You know, it is super fascinating that a subscriber on this channel was actually there. He witnessed with his own eyes Jomo Kenyatta and others rushing here with horns blaring, sirens blaring, to that meeting at Harambee House shortly after that big Zanzibar announcement had been made. But to understand it all, we must know what the big deal was all about. And this is something that is not often talked about. The big issue with what had unfolded in Zanzibar was the foreign assistance, the foreign influence in making that particular Zanzibar revolution, by the way, which was very, very bloody. In other words, it would never have happened, let alone it being successful. It would never have happened without that foreign influence. And those who were there had no option but to quickly remember what had happened to other Africans shortly after they had gained independence. And the perfect example was Congo, which had gained independence, and a patriot, man of the people, Patrice Lumumba. And so what was ushered into the Kenyan presidency was something very dangerous. Something called fear. Okay? You're president and you're just imagining things going south and you and your precious family being harmed. And that one, of course, keeps you very much awake all night. It is my belief that it was at that emergency cabinet meeting that the plan was first hatched by the Kenyatta administration to deal with all present, midterm, and even possible future threats to the security of the state, which really is to the security of the president, to the safety of the president, to deal with all of them quickly and decisively. It is important to note that in this context, security of the state is not for the good of the people of Kenya. It is not for the good of the long-suffering wananchi. No! It is for the selfish good of the leader. And the reasoning is, if you do not have a stable leadership, then the people will also suffer. So by extension, the excuse is, security of the state is also security of the people, because they will be affected if you do not have a stable leadership. Now that one is very debatable, especially because you can have a parliamentary system where all the power is not concentrated on just one man. And that one becomes very difficult to interfere with, very difficult to make unstable, especially by powerful outside forces. And so Jomo Kenyatta finally settled into the presidency after the massive 1969 operation that included blood oaths at Ichaweri. Very demonic, very satanic things. And was followed by a purging of the Luo community who were seen as a threat to the presidency. And the way this was done was by dealing with all the main leaders from the Luo community. Jaramogi Oginga Odinga was put under house arrest. Agwins Kodek was assassinated. Thomas Joseph Odhiambo Mboya, Tom Mboya, was assassinated. And Kisumu was purged. through the Kisumu massacre. Now, my apologies, I'm trying to go very quickly, so you may have to catch up with my earlier videos that talk about these events in great detail right here on this channel. When Moi took over the presidency in 1978, he had a very huge problem settling into the job. First of all, it took a long time for him to internalize and realize that he was actually now POC, President of the Republic of Kenya. Believe it or not, he had to be persuaded. And some of the things that were done included getting F-5 fighter jets to escort him back into the country, to escort his commercial Kenya Airways aircraft back into the country. Immediately, it came into Kenyan airspace. A very expensive, unnecessary, sometimes even dangerous exercise that had to be done to help Moi settle in. But even after he had settled in, he got this determination to lead Kenya by being a Mr. Nice Guy president. But sometime in the year 1980, reality came knocking. There were still coups happening all over Africa, some of them very bloody. Foreign interests were still in fierce competition for Kenya. The Soviet Union saw it as an opportunity, to recover what they had lost under Kenyatta, and especially the influence they had enjoyed in Kenya when we had the non-aligned foreign policy, not aligned to the West or East. Super wise foreign policy, in my opinion, in those days. And the Russians had even financed and built the main hospital in Kisumu, which older Kenyans still nickname Russia to this day. The Soviets, and this was during the Cold War, US versus the Soviet Union or Russia, even pushed for political comeback of Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, which Moi supported initially. Mr. Good Guy President had no problems with it. But in 1980, reality check. And this is what led to the 1982 event, to secure the Moi presidency. The coup, or rather attempted coup, that was never even a coup. That was never even an attempted coup. I have done a major video on that with great detail right here on this channel. And overnight, Moi magically changed from the Mr. Nice Guy, will never do what Jomo did, president, into the draconian, feared dictator Moi, who ruled Kenya with an iron hand for 24 long years. When the third president of Kenya, Mwai Kibaki, took over in 2002, in what many saw as the second and final liberation of the country called Kenya, he too, like his predecessors, did not understand what the presidency was all about. Many older Kenyans will never forget the statement by some of his cocky cabinet ministers, like Kiraitu Murungi, who said that Moi should retire to his Kabarak farm, but keep his TV on and watch and maybe take notes and observe how a government should really be run. They called the Moi presidency the Moi era, not ERA, but ERROR. Makosa, mistake, the Moi mistake, the Moi era. And the intelligence community were instructed to keep a very close eye on retired Moi, so that he does not sabotage the new Kenya. Kibaki handlers even attempted to jail Moi for his sins during his era. his 24-year era of terror in Kenya. They were stopped by the most unlikely person you'd expect to stop the Kibaki regime from this big ambition, determined ambition they had. Guess who stopped Kibaki from jailing Moi? Raila Amolo Odinga. Yeah, again, I have videos on this channel that talk about that in great detail, especially the why. But even after all that drama, it was not long before Mwai Kibaki ate humble pie, went looking for Moi and begged Moi, please help me. Please help me to be president of Kenya. It seems that I do not understand. I have no idea. Please assist. And Moi assisted, and the Kibaki presidency stabilized. When the fourth president of the Republic of Kenya, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, took over, it has been recorded that he made frequent visits to retired President Daniel Toroitich arap Moi. And Moi once again assisted a president to settle into the presidency, and the Uhuru presidency was stabilized. But something happened, which many Kenyans are still not aware of. By this time, Moi was getting old. He was losing it. It became increasingly difficult to communicate with Moi and to get his gems of wisdom. And so when 2017 came along and Uhuru Kenyatta had to prepare for his re-election bid, the Moi resource was no longer viable. But founding First Lady of the Republic of Kenya, Mama Ngina Kenyatta, knew people, and assisted her son to get the right counsel. And I believe one of the first major pieces of advice that Uhuru followed was to distance himself and to be very wary of his deputy president, William Ruto. And we know what happened after the 2017 presidential elections. And we also know that Uhuru Kenyatta's second term was stabilized shortly after the handshake with Raila Amolo Odinga. Now fast forward to the present, and I will start by asking a very simple question. Jomo Kenyatta, Daniel Toroitich arap Moi, Emilio Stanley Mwai Kibaki had no idea they needed help. So, in your opinion, do you think that William Ruto is so special, was so special, that when he took over the presidency, he would not need any advice to settle into the presidency? Tell me what you think in the comments area below. In my opinion, there was even a bigger problem, a much bigger problem, with Kenya's fifth president. And it has a lot to do with his character. You see, Ruto did not get into State House just like that. No. He used his own craftiness. He used his own brains. He did not take advice in his climb to the top. So would you expect such a person, once he has reached his goal, he has become president of Kenya, to start looking for people to advise him, to help him stabilize his presidency? Do you expect that to happen? Of course not. I got to where I am using my own brains, and therefore I will govern very easily using my own brains. Because after all, governing surely cannot be as difficult as the many, many difficult things I've done in order to reach this place. That was clearly the thinking. And this is the thinking that has culminated in these remarks by Ruto that have caused a storm in Kenya, and by their remarks to usher in the year 2024, where a whole pork tells the country, my plan is being sabotaged by the opposition. And many people quickly see that this cannot be true. Why? What opposition is he talking about? Because the Finance Bill 2023 was passed. Why? Because State House bought the opposition. They bought enough support to get the Finance Bill, this thing which damaged Kenya, to sail through Parliament. Ruto tells us that he has been sabotaged. His big perfect plan that will take Kenya very far has been sabotaged by court cases. Yeah. And those close to him have told us that these court cases are being financed by Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, fourth president, his predecessor. And again, any right-thinking sober Kenyan knows that that is not true, for the simple reason that you cannot take anything to court, that before any court in the Republic of Kenya accepts a case and agrees to sit down and listen to that case, it must first and foremost be proved that there's a case. They look at the Constitution. What does the Constitution say? And only when they are satisfied will they say, yes, we believe there may be a case here that we should listen to. In other words, what Ruto is saying is that his plan is being sabotaged by Kenyans who want to follow the Constitution and the laws of the land. How ridiculous is that? Which means this plan for a better Kenya must be unconstitutional. Yeah? It is being forced through with the attitude that the Constitution and the laws of Kenya are just something annoying, an obstacle that is very annoying, an obstacle that slows down this big grand plan for a better Kenya. That is really what it is. In a nutshell, the president accuses a divisive opposition, hostage-taking vested interests, and privileged elite of persistent litigation to derail his administration's radical policies intended to uplift the majority. Hiyo ni kizungu mingi. And in my opinion, I avoid kizungu mingi, because in 90% to 100% of the cases, when you see somebody introducing kizungu mingi, iko shida. Folks, we should know that we're in very serious trouble. When going on to 2 years of the Ruto presidency, we are still being told the problem is former President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. We have a major problem. And there's something else very disturbing. Okay? This statement from Ruto has been interpreted by some analysts, yeah, as a very clear sign that Ruto has given up. Clearly things have not gone the way he expected. And when we go back to human nature, you know somebody has given up when they start blaming everybody else except themselves. I would have succeeded in business, but my wife frustrated me. I would have passed my exams, but all this noise my siblings were making is what has frustrated me, what has stopped me from passing my exams, etc., etc. Excuses, kibao. In the year 2024, there is no reason to expect this to stop, and therefore we should expect more and more excuses, more and more reasons why these grand plans of the Ruto administration are not working. But I will tell you the thing that scares me most about the year 2024, more than everything else we have discussed so far, and that is 2024 appears to be the year of the climax of judgment over the nation called Kenya. And we have seen more than enough signs. I mean, think about it. Who ever imagined that in the year 2023, people would start digging back into things Kenyans had forgotten? The assassination of Tom Mboya, the assassination of Pio Gama Pinto, which was the very first assassination in Kenya in 1965, the assassination of Jacob Juma, and very shortly, and remember that you heard about it first on this channel, very shortly we will start seeing and hearing mind-blowing revelations of the events of the year 2007, the clashes. Do you know, to date, the issues of 2007 have never been settled. There are people who lost their farms and to this day have never recovered them. They are not able to go back to their ancestral farms. Yes, you heard me say ancestral. People were born, maybe they don't come from that community, but they were born in that farm in the Rift Valley. They don't know any other home. Many lost their minds. They are no longer mentally stable. Yeah, and I happen to know at least one person personally who was going through this as a result of the events of 2007. Who is digging up all this dirt from the past? Answer: nobody. It is just happening. It's happening all over the place. It's popping up all over the place like popcorn in a sufuria. Pop, 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 pop. And there can only be one reason why this is happening. Judgment imewasili. Judgment imefika. It is here with us. And therefore in the year 2024, we should expect many terrible things to happen to people, which when you look at it, to be able to understand it, will be nothing else but judgment. You murdered people and you're sure you got away with it. I'm sorry, actually you didn't, because there is another judge. There is another judgment system which you overlooked, which never misses anything, and which I believe is the reason why all this dirt from the past is being dragged out into the open. The scary thing here is that many things changed in Kenya in 2023. Kenya changed a lot in the year 2023. Indeed, I can even say Kenya is now unrecognizable as a result of the events of 2023. Well, this unrecognizable Kenya of 2023, when the year 2024 is done, you will not be able to recognize this Kenya of post 2023. You will not be able to recognize it. Kenya will change even more in 2024 than it changed in the year 2023. I believe as we go deeper into the year 2024, it will become less and less about the failed administration of William Ruto and more about the root problems facing the country called Kenya. And of course, to go to the root of a problem, you have to go back into history to the beginning, 1963, and even earlier. Folks, my dear friends, that is what I believe the year 2024 will be all about. That is my 2024 prediction. You know, even if you don't care for history, in the year 2024, you have no option. You have no other way out. You must understand the history. Upende, usipende. And I'm not forcing you. I'm not threatening you. I'm just telling you the truth. That is really what it is. And it is not me who created that situation. And so because of that, I cannot be threatening you. And one very good way of ensuring that you have a very firm grasp of the history of Kenya, especially matters governance, is to take in my landmark ebook, Dark Secrets of the Kenyan Presidency. Now I know many of you have already read it. Many of you have taken in the audio version of this ebook. But I also know many of you have not. And it is my strong recommendation, before you go back to work, before you go back to the office, that you take it in. You can see details on your screens right now on how you can quickly get hold of it, and also at the same time win for yourself a full year's free subscription to my weekly intelligence briefings. And I have a number of double editions of my WIBs lined up, for next week. Very highly sensitive information. And so I would highly recommend that you grab this opportunity immediately. Now, Dark Secrets of the Kenyan Presidency is a very entertaining read. Very entertaining. Those who have taken it in have said so. It's not just boring history. And above everything else, it will help you understand the country called Kenya more than you've ever understood it. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.